Hey
Hey y'all.
guys, welcome back to another episode, the first real episode that
hmm
isn't about COVID type stuff, which is kind of a relief. But anyway, today we're going to discuss, I think, about animal rehoming, like rehoming your own pet, adopting a rehome pet, that kind of thing. Uh, but to start off, I've got a bit of a icebreaker, workplace icebreaker. So Locke, what are the three worst things you've smelled this week?
I can't actually smell, but I can tell you what I could.
Oh, right.
I can tell
What
you
are the three
general
worst?
things. I can sense probably one of the worst things is like ammonia or like day old salad. Like when you clean your tortoise tank and then they just have old
Oh
salad
my
that's been
God.
sitting there, just especially if there's fruit.
Oh,
The one time you give fruit, they're probably the nastiest shit. Why do you ask?
well, I don't know. Mine is just ringing in my memory. So the top three would probably be, third, Maine Coon anal glands, two, a decaying snake, and one, even more decayed rat inside the decayed snake.
Wait, what?
So
Sorry, you're gonna
a
have to run that by me again.
reticulated python, 6 feet long. It was cut open for a necropsy, and it was already kind of decayed, and there was a decomposing rat inside of it. So the two smells together just made yeah, not
Oh,
the best
Jesus.
odor.
I can thankfully say I never have smelled anal glands, but
Oh, really? That's
yes.
lucky. I've never smelled cat anal glands.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Maine Coon specific. Yeah.
Because it was very big. It was a big cat.
Yeah. Well, they can get huge. They can get like 30
Yeah,
pounds, can't
yeah. It was pretty big cat, pretty smelly.
they? Ooh.
Yeah, the snake was pretty smelly. That it smells inside me. I can every once in a while get a memory of it and almost be able to taste it, and it's ugh. But the longer you're in the room with it, you couldn't really smell it after a while. So yeah, I think it just became part of me now. Um,
Ooh,
yeah.
that's
Anyway, so how are your animals doing?
thankfully I
Do
haven't
not
smelled
have
any.
frightening mental
I have no
image.
decaying rat smell, thankfully.
Yeah.
Or dead oh, what was that? Oh, that's my rabbit. So
Oh
I'm
yeah,
currently
you're
fostering
fun.
a rabbit. I did mention that the last episode. I didn't really get into it. But she's gonna be staying with me. She's so freaking cute. She's trying to flop in her litter box right now. I love it.
Yeah, and what kind
So
of rabbit? Do you mention what kind?
yeah, she's a Flemish giant rabbit.
Oh.
The other thing though, she's definitely mixed because she's a tiny girl. She was an abandoned rabbit, unfortunately.
Aw.
Found in one of the more popular parks in our city. Thankfully, we got her as soon as someone did notice her. We were able to get her really easily. Apparently, she just kind of came over. We didn't
Aw,
hunt her down or anything. I'm like,
that's
oh
pretty
my
cute.
gosh. She came in super underweight.
Mm-hmm.
You could see by neglect and everything like that. But she was just all spine. Could barely pet her because when you're petting down someone's bones, it's uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
She's gaining
Aw.
so much weight. She eats so many pellets. In comparison, because I forget it's four rabbits in one.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
I
I know,
forget how
right? It's
much they
they eat
eat.
out dog bowls.
Yeah, well,
Basically.
yeah. So I'm still trying to measure out. It's a little more difficult to be okay, well, you're an anorexic rabbit, but also I can't overfeed you and let you just eat whatever the fuck
Mhm.
you want and you get fat.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But she's doing super well. I used to have a hamster. I did mention it beforehand.
Mm-hmm.
He was I don't know what to call it, a rescue. He was a rescue hamster. He was abandoned at my store. And he was a year and a half old because he was abandoned on a box. And the box said a year and a
Oh.
half old. So I'll take him in. And I'm surprised because his situation was pretty fucked up.
Yeah.
I'll probably mention it in another episode of the weirdest drop off stories
Yeah.
we've ever had. But I'm considering what everything looked like and everything. I was assuming this hamster must have been hella neglected and not in good
Mhm.
health. But if he was a year and a half old, he stayed with me for 6 months. So he lived to 2 years, which was
Oh.
absolutely awesome. But unfortunately, yeah, he did pass.
Oh no, poor Ludacris.
Yeah. Oh yeah, his
That
name
was
is
his name.
Ludacris.
Yeah.
I have a I have a certain name themes around that. One of them is
Mm-hmm.
rappers, and his name is Ludacris.
Aw. He had a good rest of his life, though.
Yeah.
That's so sweet.
What about you? You had a bird last time.
Yeah, so I have Churro. She's a budgie that was found outside by someone who called into the vet clinic and they couldn't keep her. So I said I'd take her. She was pooping a lot of blood. She had like internal ulcers from the stress of being outside. And so she was put on two different kind of medication, an antibiotic and another one for the ulcers. And she's been getting better. She's been eating a lot. She's still a little skittish. And I gave her a really big cage.
Okay, so you
I
still have her
got
with you in
her.
your house?
Yeah, she's over there. I'll like turn. If people are like watching, they can see. I guess
Oh,
yeah, you could see her cage. Yeah, and that's actually the All Living Things rat starter kit cage from
yeah, it
PetSmart.
works though.
Because like the only difference is it doesn't have like a pull-out tray, which like whatever. So rodent cages I found are usually like a bird cage, but more space for less money. Like
Oh yeah,
wake up
absolutely.
sheeple.
Yeah. Oh, but
Like
honestly, so I have a ferret nation right here. So it's like
yeah, for
two
small
carnations
parrots.
together, right? That's my main bird cage.
Yeah, like I think like the critter nations are great for like small parrots. I think the only thing is like the bars on them are sort of weaker usually, so they can't stand up to like a very strong or like larger bird.
Oh,
But for small,
mine's like
not
fucking
so much
intense.
on like the not so much on like the ferret nations, but on like the all living things like rat one, like the bars are like super weak, so I wouldn't put anything like
Oh, I
bigger
get what
than
you
a
mean. Yeah,
green
yeah,
key
yeah,
conure, like pyre or conure in there.
yeah.
But yeah, like the ferret nation ones, the bars are usually pretty strong.
The only thing though is I
Um,
can't put like any baby budgies in there because the bar spacing's like still
yeah,
fairly wide, so they could escape
yeah.
if they want to.
Yeah, the bar spacing on this one's like really good. It's like half
Yeah.
an
So are you
inch.
gonna be keeping her, or like are you just kind
Yeah,
of getting her to
yeah,
health?
like we've she's healthy now pretty much. Her poops are good. She's eating. So like I posted in a bunch of like lost and found bird groups online and things like that. I couldn't find any postings that were similar to her. So I don't think her owner will come forward. She did have like
Mm.
an overgrown sear problem, like she had a keratin overgrowth. I haven't done blood testing yet to see like what the cause of that is, but I think maybe they released her because they thought like it looked like bad, like mites or something. But yeah, so there's that. Churro's doing good. And I got dubia roaches,
Where did you
and
get them from?
I got
Are
them
you
from a
able to share?
sketchy breeder, because they're illegal in Canada.
Yeah, I was like, are you
So
able to say where you got it from?
yeah,
Like, I
no,
get it.
so I went to if you know Toronto, Queen and Roncesvalles to get them, and like I messaged the guy, and like right after I messaged him on Kijiji, he like deleted his ad. And so I was just like messaging him, and the other things he was selling, I checked like his other ads, and it was all like audio equipment and like his tarantulas molts, which were mounted in Tupperware sandwich boxes on his wall that he was also selling. Um, so after messaging him, being like, okay, like because we agreed on a time and everything, so I was like, okay, I'm like half an hour away. Okay, I'm like 15 minutes away, and there's like no response. I'm like, okay, I'm outside, and then so no response. I was like staying outside this like building, kind of like a not so great area. And I called him, and like it rang for a long time. They picked up, and I think I woke him up, and he's like, hey, he's like, oh, did you message me? I was like, yeah, I messaged you like 3 times. He's like, oh, okay. He's like, well, just give me 15 minutes. He's like, my bins are filling up and I gotta tape up the holes. And I had no idea what that meant. It sounded pretty ominous. So I was just like, oh, okay. And then I just waited, and it was taking a really long time. I'm like, oh my God, is this guy just like running around his apartment grabbing random cockroaches from his apartment? And they're not like I'm dubious of these dubias, okay? Like, what if these are not like real Peruvian dubia cockroaches? These are just like random like Queen and Roncesvalles apartment cockroaches he's like
Oh my
grabbing
gosh.
for me.
That is
And
something that would happen.
yeah, so like I waited, and then he finally came down. He was like sketchy, but like nice enough. But he like handed me this clear jar, like filled to the brim of cockroaches. And like
Live, right?
I brought like $40 because I couldn't make change because no one really accepts cash because he wanted it in cash. He wouldn't do e-transfer. Which I know sounds like super sketchy, but I got my cockroaches. But so I was like throw some extra ones in, and so I think I got maybe like 80. I don't know, but it was like full. I was
Are
like,
you
I have to
breeding them now
go.
for yourself then?
Mhm.
Are you gonna breed them now yourself then?
Yeah, they're breeding right now. They're
Okay,
like having
awesome.
babies as we speak. They actually have live birth, which is super disturbing and something I don't want to think about.
Oh.
But so I had this like clear jar filled to the brim with cockroaches. It looked disgusting. I'm like, I have to take the public I have to take a subway back home holding this jar of cockroaches. So I stuffed them like in my backpack, and I found out what he meant by like taping up the holes, because like the baby ones are very, very small, and he'd put them all in the bin, and like the air holes were small, so we had to tape up the air holes to like a certain point so the babies couldn't get out, because they can't climb a flat surface. So we had to like tape them up. Yeah.
Fuck.
So I was not expecting the size of them, because I've only seen like the baby ones, like the nymphs or whatever, like people feeding them to the lizards. So I've never
Yeah,
seen
I
like an
feel like the
adult one.
most I've seen is maybe like what, a few centimeters, like
They're
maybe, or
like
like
two
that'd be
inches
yeah,
long.
2 inches long. I mean, like
They're
I'm like,
no,
oh,
no,
let
they're
me
like
compare to
giant.
inches.
I was not expecting this. They're huge and disgusting. They don't look like anything, because like what they're like baby like nymphs, they look like cute little like pill bugs or something. These are
Yeah,
like full whole ass cockroaches.
are they like 4 or 5 inches?
Yeah, no,
Oh
I wouldn't.
fuck.
I think I said 4 or 5 inches at first, but then someone was like showing me on a rule. They're like, they're not that big. I'm like, yeah, okay, they're like two. I exaggerated.
Oh,
They
okay.
feel
But it
like they're
feels
four to
like
five
it.
inches, and they have like the males have wings. They can't fly, but they can just like descend. But it's
Hover.
still, it's yeah, they can't really hover. This like if they fall, they can like break their fall basically, but they can't fly.
Like R2D2.
Yeah, basically. But like they're nasty. And they like the other problem with them is like they know they're nasty, because like they do that thing like when you look at them, they all run away like cockroaches do. Like I gave them like an apple slice today, and they were all like eating it. I'm like, oh, that's kind of cute. I'll like look at them. I like opened the lid, and they all like immediately like dispersed with like that running sound, like do do do, like you can hear them like scuttling away.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is disgusting. Like they know they're disgusting. They know
They
that
know
they're
they're
like,
nasty. That's funny.
yes,
That's funny.
because like the pill bugs and stuff, like when they're eating, they're all like cute and like looking at you and they're eating, like they know they're cute, but these like hide me. It's so disgusting. Anyway, yeah, that's my dubia roach story.
Jesus, I just started. I was breeding mealworms. I think I'm like, oh, this is gross. I will never breed UV roaches after that. Ugh.
No, like they don't smell though. I will say they do not smell. And they do not chirp or make any noise except for the scuttling.
I don't think I could handle that.
Yeah, so they're okay. The lizards are eating them. So
Yeah. Oh my god.
that's a
That must
bonus.
be. I'm jealous though. I might have to get some off of you.
Yeah,
'Cause
they're
that's.
breeding. So
Because yeah, I should start selling. Because are we allowed to say that online? Nobody's fucking watching
just
this. It's
start
important.
selling.
Like nobody important is watching
I'll
this
sell
shit.
them by the O.
So no, they're so beneficial for the reptiles, and it sucks. I don't know
Yeah,
why they're legal in Canada, but
I
like
think they're
it's
invasive
so
or
annoying.
something, which is weird because it goes, because I like was looking if they'd like breed if they escaped, obviously, because I'm horrified about like introducing cockroaches to my apartment. Apparently they'll just die if they escape, but I've also read that they're invasive. So I don't know what the truth is.
And just what is the truth?
What is the truth? I
Yeah.
don't know.
Well, you know what? Don't
Anyway.
let them escape, and they won't be invasive.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's all
Oh.
good. I also got like dairy cow isopods, which are very cute. So no
Oh
complaints there.
yeah.
Yeah, they're pretty cute.
Oh my gosh, I need to redo my bioactive soon. Made
Mm-hmm.
me itch because I'm getting a bunch of plants. Everyone's getting plants right now. Like
Aw.
I'm the asshole that started a garden during quarantine.
Really?
Yeah, so I'm like plant crazy,
Aw.
and I'm like, oh, I need to redo my bioactive.
Aw. I wish I like having like a garden is like a goal, like growing a tomato, or having like what my goal is to have like an aquaponic like herb garden with like
I
a
have a
betta
herb
tank
garden,
in the
yeah.
kitchen. But like I want like growing out of a betta tank though. I want it to be like
Oh shit, yeah.
hydroponic or aquaponic. Like what is the truth? But what is the difference? But yeah.
I don't know. I use them interchangeably.
Yeah, I don't think there's a huge difference. Anyway, so our topic for today
Yeah,
is
back on track.
yeah. So our topic for today is rehoming your pet or adopting a rehome pet. So, well, first we'll get into guess the most difficult decision there is it like when is it okay to rehome a pet? Is it ever okay to rehome a pet? And I
Just
think
like the general
yeah,
that general sentence, do you rehome a pet?
yeah. Do you? Should you? And like I guess obviously like it's not morally wrong to rehome a pet like in every situation at all. In a lot of situations it's more beneficial for the pet.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not something I would say.
Yeah. So we're
Like,
both yes people on this, right? Yes,
mm-hmm.
you can rehome you. It's beneficial
Yeah.
to rehome. We both have that idea. So the people that are, I guess, either on the fence about that topic, or just like plain out, they like, no, you should never rehome a pet. You should always stick to it. Uh, you know what? If you were rehoming a pet, to me, that is the most selfless action you can do. You're
Mm-hmm.
putting everything but yourself as like priority. You're putting their health at priority. The only thing though is, are you actually rehoming it? So, example, if you do it, let's do something a little bit more relatable. Your cat got out, it got pregnant, and now you're getting rid
Mm-hmm.
of the babies. That's not rehoming. Like that's
Yeah,
now getting rid of babies
that could have
because
been
of your
avoided.
accident. Yeah, like because of your
Yeah.
accident. That way, get your cat fixed. Jesus fucking Christ, get your cat fixed.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so that's not necessarily rehoming. Rehoming, I would consider to be, you got an animal or animals, or that you can no longer care for, or never
Yeah.
have been able to care for, but now you're just realizing it. You know, like that type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe it was something that you're technically only taking care of temporarily, but I would kind of consider that more of a foster situation,
Yeah.
because you know it's not, you know it's only a temporary housing. It was never meant to be permanent.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I
Yeah.
would. Do you have a different definition to it?
No, I think that's pretty much my definition too. Um, Maybe I'll just like Google quickly and see like if there's like a main definition of what it would be.
Yeah. What does
It'll
Google
I'm
say?
like, yeah, but I would say I pretty much agree with what you say. I think it should have the animal's best interests at heart, definitely. Here's an opinion. Google, let's do like a rehoming a pet definition. So this is a definition from rabbitsonline.net. I think of selling as giving the animal to the first person who comes along, gives you the money. Rehoming is when you have a pet you can't keep anymore. You want to find it another good home. You may or may not get money for it. So I think, yeah, basically, like I think if it's the animal's best interest at heart, maybe there will be an adoption fee, maybe
Yeah.
not, but the money shouldn't be
Yeah.
what comes first,
Yeah. I would
um,
say you're
for the
kind of
rehoming.
you're either reselling it. If you're rehoming and you are actually putting your animal's best interests forward, then you could, yeah. I guess selling maybe has a worse connotation to it. Like it's a lot of people see a bad view on it. Because let's say
Yeah,
you have a rabbit, and then that's probably one of the most common ones, unfortunately, is like rabbits that are going back up on whatever selling platform website. And then they have an adoption fee to them, or people are like, needs a home ASAP, and then like has $10 on it or something like that, right?
mm-hmm.
For me, if you're gonna rehome, it should be for the animal. But I would say if you, in that description, you could put, would you be able to give a donation to it? Because maybe you're rehoming because you can no longer take care of it, or
Yeah,
like you had something wrong with your financial thing to like crash, and now you can no longer afford to keep
yeah,
it.
yeah, and I feel like you should also charge some price at least just to kind of warn out people who want it for like bad
If you're putting online,
purposes.
that is if you are
Yeah, if
putting it
you're
online, yeah.
yeah, if you're putting it online, like people to weed out people who want it for bad purposes, people who may not have the means to look after an animal.
That's yeah,
And
that goes for
then
adoption too, just in general. Like
yeah,
look at what prices are
and
realistic and what
I
keeps
think
your animal
like
safe away from
and I
random
think
people.
if you yeah, exactly. And if you are going to charge like a fee for it, you should also make sure that like people are getting their money's worth. Like I don't want to refer to it, but you don't want to give them just like a sick animal in
Yes.
like a crappy enclosure and then charge them like $100 for it when they're
Yeah.
basically like doing the animal a favor. Like you should have it like vet checked, and with like a basic like blood and wellness testing done. And I mean, it goes as saying obviously you should have a proper enclosure for your animal
Mm-hmm. If
to
you
go along
can't, then
with
I
it.
would say, like, yeah, if you don't have any of those things, like which you normally do see, I would say don't put a price on it. Just do as much interrogation
Mm-hmm.
as you can. If you're rehoming, you're usually talking to people you know anyway, first
Mm-hmm.
because they're more reliable, or you talk to people that are looking for something. You're on smaller communities that you can trust and are more reliable, rather than on is selling or like a reselling website
Yeah.
that is just any random person.
Yeah, exactly. And I would say probably look into people you know more than just posting it on a website. And like, and if you do have to post it online to get like a bigger reach, maybe go to like a Facebook group or something for like
Exactly.
animal people in your area. That way it's like a bigger group of like animal people, but you know, it's still people who know have knowledge of pet care. And I think that's probably a better way to do it than just posting it online to
So
whoever is looking.
what would you say is like, yeah, this needs to be rehomed, or maybe you can make adjustments and keep it, or like there like you could still stick to it, or like what makes that difference? Like what is
Yeah.
crossing the line where you got to rehome it now? And then that's going to be varied on every situation, but if you can give an example just so we know your stance on it.
So I think length of time owning the pet definitely factors in. If it's a pet you've owned its entire life and then it suddenly developed issues, it would be very hard to give up that animal, and it would like I feel like that would kind of be a moral problem, like rehoming a pet that you've kept since it was like, very small, or you've had it for years and then it suddenly develops an issue, to just get rid of it because of that when it's been with you for that long. So I feel like in that case, you should definitely try. If it's an animal you acquired more recently, and it's has like, and you've tried working with it, you've tried everything, and it's still like you just can't take care of it, or it's affecting, or has behavioral problems that are affecting your life greatly and you can't seem to fix, and you feel it's not beneficial to the animal, then that would be a situation where you would rehome it. And so, yeah, I think length of time owned. If you've tried several different things like to do with the animal, and if it's, and also it depends like whether it's a behavioral issue you're rehoming it for, or if you just can't care for it. Like I feel like if you,
There's health,
yeah,
there's finance, there's behavior, and I guess maybe what's some other things like housing, or
yeah,
maybe like allergies, like that type of stuff.
yeah, like I guess like an exterior like source, like
Yeah,
someone in your
exactly.
family can't, sometimes it's like kind of beyond your control, or like your landlord is saying like no, or like your parents are saying no, or someone like in a family member is allergic. So yeah, I feel like so to rephrase, like if it's an animal like you don't have the means to take care of, then definitely rehome it. Like you shouldn't really be like trying to like accomplish proper husbandry for an animal.
Yeah,
Like it should have that,
yeah,
like full
that's
stop.
basic
Yeah, like
underlying care that should
yeah,
already be done. That's not
yeah.
something
If
you
it's like
work
a
toward.
behavioral issue, like if you've like, and again, like if even if it's an animal you had for a long time and suddenly you're like unable to like care for it completely because financial crisis, then yeah, then even in that situation, then I think rehoming it would be in its best interest. If it's a behavioral issue, then that's something you should definitely try to work with. Um, and also take into account like how much is the behavior issue affecting your life, like
Hmm.
is it really like greatly impacting your ability to like I don't like live properly. um and so I think that's something you should definitely try multiple different ways to fix, and then see if maybe it's something like intrinsic, like you can't get rid of, like maybe the dog is stressed out because you have children and it doesn't like being around like in a busy household, and so it would be genuinely happier with someone else. Like that's something you can't really adapt around to change that behavior of this dog, because that's just like how your household is. You can't change
Yeah,
that.
there's trauma too
Yeah,
with certain animals that
yeah,
like
if
you
it's like
can't
a
fix that. Like you could help it,
mhm.
but a lot of times you can't fix
Yeah, and that kind of comes into like being aware before you adopt an animal. Like if you adopt like a
that.
very traumatized dog or cat or pet, like that animal will come with its host of issues. You need to be aware of these things before you bring it into your home. Then you won't have to like just be another home like in its life and pass it around somewhere else. Um, so yeah, I think those are definitely some situations where rehoming would be beneficial.
Hmm.
Um, and yeah, those are like, and again, like the other reasons, like yeah, if like your family or your landlord or some other issue you can't change at all and you have to get rid of the animal, then you do just make sure it goes to the right home who's able to care for it properly. And again, things that you should look into before you get an animal, like check with your landlords, make sure you have your parents or your whoever you're living with's approval. If someone has an allergy, maybe don't get a kind of animal that would irritate that allergy. So
Yeah, like those are, I would agree on all parts with that.
mhm.
Absolutely. Yeah. Like for me the only time I'd be like stick with your animal other than the factor of like you like the age and everything like that you were saying, like you grew up with it, you raised it, and like it's now,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it would probably affect you worse if you put like more effort into just helping the situation
Mm-hmm.
rather than rehoming, because
Yeah.
it does, that's a real thing. We don't want to just be like kick the animal out right away if you
Yeah.
can't take care of it properly. You could always adjust your lifestyle
Mm-hmm.
to do so, right? So other than sticking, I guess yeah, the only time I would say if you can stick to it is that, like, it's not all the checkpoints are maybe not as great, like not
Mm-hmm.
perfect. Let's say like oh, I'm having a hard time like describing this. You got an animal and it could have a better lifestyle, but you could work up to it. But no, you could also have more money without this animal, or you could do some
Yeah.
other things without this animal. But you got an animal for a reason. Let's say
Mm-hmm.
like emotional support or something to take care of, like just in general, a friend or something like that. And they don't like, I've seen a lot of like Kijiji ads from that, and I've even seen a video of a channel called Lemon Bunny.
Yeah.
Love her. She's absolutely great. She was actually having a conversation with someone on the phone. She was having people adjust their Kijiji ads to
Yeah.
make it more beneficial for the animal that's going to be rehomed, right? And
Mm-hmm.
one person that she was talking to was saying, "Oh yeah, I'm getting rid of the rabbit because I'm gone 8 hours of the day. I'm come home." And she was asking about like what the setup was, like if it was up in a
Yeah.
cage or anything, then yeah, that sucks. But it was in a playpen. It had the appropriate amount of space. It still had everything it is, and that's actually a beneficial, like that's a good scenario for a
Yeah.
rabbit to be in.
Yeah, exactly. Like if
Like
it has
that's actually
proper
not bad
like
at all. I think we're too
stimulation
hard
during
on
the day.
ourselves. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So
like that
like
would
if
be
you
scenarios. I would be like, stick to it. And I guess like it just really needed that conversation because she got the rabbit
mm-hmm.
because whether they got the rabbit because of themselves, their kids, or like that, they really care for the animal.
Yeah.
And like especially if you had it for at least a few years or like that, you definitely develop such a good relationship with that animal.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's not that bad. I would be like, stick with it. I think you're being too hard on yourself with your care, and that this is actually a good situation for your
Yeah.
animal. You
And
don't
that's
need to
like a
rehome it.
situation where like weighing like the potential like is the stress of like this animal having to go to a new home and like settle
Mm-hmm.
into a new place, is that worth more like than it how it is right now? Like would it be a
Exactly.
great improvement if it went through all of this, or would it just be kind of the same? And then like that, like no, as if I just stick with it, maybe give the rabbit some more like enrichment in its playpen every day, like it'll be fine.
Yeah, or like maybe you got a new job, but you're gonna that position's gonna change or something like that. So maybe you have an animal at home, whether it be a dog or a cat or a rabbit, or I thought you don't get as much interaction with them. Something that would need like actual human interaction.
Mm-hmm.
But your situation's temporary. Like let's say, okay, I'm gonna have to work and travel a long way, so I'm gonna be out not at home for a long time, but I'm gonna still make sure they at least get a walk every second day or something like that. And that's gonna be like
Mm-hmm.
that for maybe, I don't know, 3 months, let's say. That's not the
Yeah.
worst thing ever. Like as long as you're planning for that to get better,
Mm-hmm.
Greta, and you're checking
Yeah,
in
you have
once,
like a
because
plan of action.
yeah, exactly. I have a plan of action for it to get better. Because like with that dog example, for that's a scenario where you're not meeting all the like the checklist
Yeah.
points. You're not meeting all of them, but you're planning on changing that. It's only temporary. While with the rabbit one, you've met all the checkpoints. You're just being too hard on yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess that would be the only two. I'd be like, yeah, you could stick with your animal. Like you could not, I don't want to say suck it up. That's not the right word. That's definitely not the right phrasing I want to use for it. But definitely stick to it, because we get animals for a reason. They do
Yeah.
help us a lot. But I do want to talk about like the checklist of like getting an animal.
Yeah. Yeah, of course. Yeah. Oh, and I also have a quick question, but before that, something I was just wondering, how do you feel of people who rehome an animal then get another animal soon after?
That depends. So like if you're talking behavioral issues, that makes
Mm-hmm.
sense.
Yeah.
Is it as common? No, but that's the only thing though with behavior is never guaranteed, because
Mm-hmm.
change of environment could affect behavior, and it usually does.
Yeah.
Um, so for me, example, when I saw a hamster,
Mm-hmm.
They're like, get me what's the nicest hamster you have here? And I'm like, does not matter. These
Yeah.
hamsters are all going to go through travel. They're going to go inside of a completely new cage, and you're not even going to be able to interact with it for a while, like
Mm-hmm.
almost a week. And then, so it does not fucking matter.
Yeah, exactly.
That
That's
whole
true.
stress thing, you're going to have an angry hamster on your usually, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, oh, sorry, what was the question again?
How do you feel about people who like rehome their pet and then they get another pet like
Yeah.
right after or soon or after?
When you hear that initially, you want
Mm-hmm.
to be a red flag. Like you want to
Yeah.
like you have a red flag in your head. You're like, what the fuck?
Mm-hmm.
Usually, like
Yeah.
if you saw a post
Yeah,
that's just like, oh,
exactly.
I got another one instead, or you heard a
Mm-hmm.
friend say that, you'd be like, what the fuck? So
Yeah.
if it was behavioral and you know all the background and you went through all the things to help the behavioral issue and it's still not working out for you, I can kind of understand, because if you had an animal for a purpose, you're still looking for that purpose,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But I'm going to say most of the time I hear that story. That is not the case.
I know exactly. Yeah.
It is, I don't like this color, or that behavior things was true, but they put no work
Mm-hmm.
to it,
Yeah.
or they got bored, or like it's usually a bad issue. That's like
Yeah.
that's me being the devil's advocate for that really small percentage of
Mm-hmm. I
people that
know.
get
Yeah,
another
I think I
animal.
agree with that too. Like there are like the odd like case where like I guess it makes sense, but most of the time it's no bueno. Like I mean like I guess maybe I can get if someone got an animal and it was like higher maintenance than they expected, so they had to rehome it, then they adjusted their expectations or did their research and got an animal that like fit their lifestyle more, like okay, but you should have done that in the first place and not put that animal through that of getting it, then getting rehomed.
Yes.
So yeah, I think it mostly probably no.
Yeah.
Um, anyway,
And
yeah,
also
so we're
that, oh, to tag along with that, that's also a thing if maybe it's just wrong timing.
mhm,
You know, like you do have to rehome it because you're like, you know what, the research, let's say you have a hamster
mhm,
and you got all the stuff for it too.
yeah,
But like you realize you do all your research, you're like, oh shit, I have a critter trail and like all this is wrong. I thought I did my research. I thought I did like stuff that's not as easy
mhm,
to point out, right?
yeah,
Um, and then you're like, you know what? As soon as I can't fit a 60-gallon in my college dorm, right?
mhm,
Like, but as soon as I'm out, I'm gonna get that, and I'm gonna get a hamster again. But I'm gonna make sure this goes to a good home.
yeah,
But that's like I don't hear that story.
no, no, it
I don't think
doesn't
I've ever
exist.
heard that story.
Yeah,
So if that happened to you and you're and like that's all about rehoming it to what you know now, right? So like if you know your knowledge now, then you know that this hamster needs to go to a huge area for them. Like they need to be out of this critter trail, right?
mhm,
So if you're going to do that, be a good person about it. So
yeah,
otherwise, if you're getting another animal right after, for what reason? Like there was not a
mhm,
lesson learned here. This is
no,
impulsive. This is selfish, and it's irresponsible.
mhm,
You're an
yeah,
asshole.
yeah,
Usually.
I know, yeah, yeah,
Not all people, but most people.
yeah, sounds about right. All right, so I guess we're gonna go into what was it like how what kind of pet or is it how to say no, how we should say
Oh,
no
I was
when
saying the
offered animals?
checklist. Yeah, I was saying the checklist of how do you know you can get how do you know you're ready for an animal? Like you've
How
done
do
your
you
shit.
okay.
So
Okay.
you're what is that checklist? I think we all have like the same thing. Like I think the biggest thing, finance. Because that's
Mhm.
something you're not gonna be able to change,
No.
usually. Usually you're stuck with what you got for a long time, at least, right?
Mhm.
So if you don't have the funds to continue taking care of the animal, no. And if you don't have the
Mhm.
funds to meet the basic requirements for the animal, that's a absolute fucking no.
Yeah, exactly. And like veterinary care should factor into that too.
Yes. Yeah. So when we're budgeting, let's go over finances just really quick. When we're budgeting, what
Mhm.
is everything encompassing? For me, vet is probably one of the most important because usually when you get an
Mhm.
animal, you want to do your vet check pretty soon or right away.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
so definitely vet care.
yeah.
Um for like for, non-dog cat animals, making sure you have a proper enclosure. Um and
No,
like
that's
make sure the
still dog.
funds.
Yeah, dog and cat too. Enclosure can
Yeah,
encompass the
I
house. If
guess,
you have a
yeah.
Great Dane, you can't be in a condo.
Mm-hmm.
You need to have a
Yeah,
backyard, like at least.
yeah, true. Yeah, so make sure you have the proper enclosure. You have, oh wait, we're still talking about like finance specifically,
Yeah,
right?
let's like,
Yeah.
what would you budget? Like, what's your budgeting
Yeah,
strategy
so like
for?
enclosure for reptiles, I'd have to include like lighting and heating. Both like the, I guess the factor on the lighting and heating electricity bill, and also like having to replace UVB bulbs and basking bulbs and stuff as they break or expire. Um, food is definitely a big one. So we have veterinary care, housing, food. I guess bedding would go for that, bedding, substrate. I guess that kind of goes with housing.
Me, I would do water bills too to put in
Water
there
bills, true,
because
especially for like fish and anything
fish
that
is
has
a
an
huge
aquatic,
one.
yeah,
Yeah, me, I'm
or
actually
anything that needs an
thinking.
aquatic area.
Yeah, I'm thinking like for me, I have guinea pigs, and
Mm-hmm.
they're on reusable mats,
Fleece.
like pee
Oh,
pads.
yeah.
So I'm
Oh, I
doing
see.
laundry so fucking often.
Yeah.
So yeah, my water bill is going up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and yeah, so that's like another thing, even outside of finance, is the time and cleaning, the time involved in cleaning
Yeah, time is
is
money.
definitely, yeah, because
So yeah,
time is money.
I would put that
And
in the
like,
finances.
yeah, so like the time involved in cleaning, and I guess another like non kind of like general space. Do you have like the physical space to accommodate the enclosure, or just like the other animal in your house will have its own space? Um,
Is it a safe
timing,
space?
yeah, timing
So
again for things like if it's a dog, like you need to take it out for exercise for runs. If it's certain breeds of dogs, they'll need more exercise. Um,
we
yeah.
could do you have, if you live with other people,
Mm-hmm.
you need to have their agreement on the animal too.
Mm-hmm.
And this is
Definitely.
usually unfortunately children. So if you're a minor under 16, don't be angry at me calling you a child or at that. I'm just saying that you have a parental guardian, right?
Yeah.
Actually, no,
Like
fuck that. People are older and have parental guardians and still
exactly.
can't put their foot down.
Yeah. Like, and one thing I've seen a lot of, like, even on like animal professional groups, is like people will be like, oh, I want to get this pet and I'm like 30 and I live with my parents. Like, I'm not saying there's something wrong with that or anything. They're like, I'm 30 and I live with my parents don't want me to get it. And people were playing the comments going, you're 30 years old, do what you want, put your foot down, just bring it home. And it's like, no, you're 30 years old, but you're still
Yeah.
living with other people. You don't just bring home a dog. Like, and I'm assuming if you're living with your parents, like you're either getting a cut, like you're getting a discount on rent, or you're not paying rent. And again, like I know lots that I live with my dad right now. Like I know it's hard. People will live with their parents. There's nothing wrong with that at all. But you do need to consider like those people, right? Like if
Doesn't
they were
even got
your
to be your
roommate,
parents, could be your roommate.
yeah, again, like it doesn't have to be your parents. It's just people that are living in a house with you that
Mm-hmm.
you need their permission to bring home an animal. It doesn't matter how old you are. It doesn't matter if you're 16, 35, or 60. If you're living with other people, you need their permission for bringing home an animal, or it's not going to be the best situation for that animal because people won't want it there.
Yeah, I would say, to give the benefit of the doubt, if you do have, I don't know, example, like let's say something that would be able to fit in your room if you have a separate room. If you
Mm-hmm.
want to get a bed of fish, I don't think there
Yeah.
should be a huge fight on that.
Yeah, no.
But let's just say, oh, I'm getting a hog nose and it just needs this much space and that, but your roommate's afraid of snakes and
Mm-hmm.
will not be, that's going to cause you guys issues later on. Not even like, take the animal out of that. That's a
Yeah,
issue that you guys are like, you don't want to cause issues with the people in your
right.
household over your
Exactly.
animal, because then that's going to be now of a discussion of get rid of the animal eventually,
Mm-hmm.
right? So, or like, oh, they're going to get used to it, or like they're afraid of dogs and they'll get used to it. Like that's, it's going to cause issues.
It
Maybe
is.
maybe a small percentage actually get used to it and don't care, but
Mm-hmm. And
I
you don't want
it's,
to risk that. It's not
yeah, I
worth
don't want
the
to
animal's
recommend
like
that
stress
ever.
or life. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like exactly. And like even I would say, even if it is something like small you can like keep in your room and there's no logical reason why they should say no, and they're being completely illogical saying you can't have a bed of fish, even then, even if you do risk it, like that's still like again like opening up a gateway for potential issues. So in
Yeah.
that situation you kind of have to like consider like, is it worth the possible fights I might get in for like having this fish or this hamster in my room? um So
yeah, so so I guess I'd be on the checklist to have as many conversations as you can have about it. Whatever you know, your knowledge about the animal, they should also know. So if you're saying getting a hamster and they're thinking just a tiny thing, and you come in with a fucking huge ass 75-gallon tank, they're like, "What the fuck is this?" Right? Like, I didn't sign
exactly.
up for this. We
Yeah,
need to have a conversation beyond the hamster itself.
I
Like,
know. And
what
that can help
is going to
convince them
encompass it?
too. Like it can help convince them too, because like having reasonable like conversation, like let's say you want to get like a lizard, but people are like, oh no, like the that's a fire hazard because of the heat lamp, and but like you don't have a proper discussion, so like you just like you don't get the lizards, they'd say no. Like if you had a proper discussion and addressed their concerns, you're like, oh well, we can get a thermostat that'll make sure the heater doesn't overheat. And they're like, oh well, what if it gets out of the tank? It's like, well, we can get the tank that has like a locking door. I can show you and get like another lock to put on it,
Yeah.
like things like that. So if you do have a conversation, open yourself up to that, you can work through your issues potentially as well. So
Mhm.
just communication is good. That's the baseline.
Gotta. Oh, one thing too is not just encompassing you, but the everybody in the household. It really affects them. Is allergies. A lot of people just think
Hmm.
about themselves when it comes to allergies, but what about your housemates or not that? If you're going
Yeah.
to get a rabbit, let's say, and you don't know if you're allergic to it, go like I suggest going to a rescue, going to a person you know, going somewhere to kind of test out your allergies if you can, if you didn't have an allergy test done. I know a lot of people develop allergies over time too, so just try to get as much like interaction as you can just to be sure
Hmm.
about it. Like if I work in a pet store, right? If somebody comes over to me and it's not busy, let
Hmm.
me just enhance that. It's not
Yeah.
fucking busy, and you're like, may I interact with a guinea pig or something like that just to see if
Hmm.
I'm allergic to it. I'm not planning on buying it. I just want to see if I'm
Hmm.
allergic to it. I
Yeah.
am not going to be angry at that. I'm going to be like,
Yeah.
for sure, you are a responsible person. Absolutely. I'm not going to let
Yeah. No,
you
that's a very good idea.
play or anything with it, but I will have you exposed to the hay and exposed to everything else. And you
Hmm.
should get your roommates with you or your housemates with you because
Hmm.
hay is something that goes into the air like
Yeah.
easily. And it's, yeah, for people that are allergic, it's really hard on their systems, especially like their lungs if they have
Oh yeah,
asthma
I can
issues.
imagine. Yeah. No, so that is a really good idea to like go and actually interact with the animal to make sure you don't have any allergies to it.
Yeah, if it's a common animal, and like usually we're not talking, you're not going to be usually allergic to like fish or reptiles.
Hmm.
So we're usually talking about more common animals. So if it's cat, dog, or rodent or
Furry
that,
things.
yeah,
Yeah.
furry things. Usually you can find someone to hopefully interact with it because it's a pretty common pet.
Hmm. Yeah.
Okay, so other than housemates and everything, budgeting, something I would put on the list, research
Yeah.
checklist. It has to be, and it's probably actually the first thing I want to put in there because then that you research how much the budgeting is,
Hmm.
you research what encompasses their care and everything.
Yeah, like how
uh
familiar you are with the pet. Um, yeah, because
exactly.
I think like how this information is useful is because in our line of work we're offered a lot of animals for rehoming, like just customers. Like I think like my second day at PetSmart, I was bagging crickets for someone. They're just like random, like, "Do you want my bearded dragon? I don't really want him anymore. He's orange. He has a log he sits on." I'm like, "Oh my god, like I want this lizard, but like I don't think I have the space." So like if you take all these things, you need to take all these things into consideration when you get like these animals offered to you, before saying yes. I know it's really hard to say no to animals when they're in need, but you can always give people alternatives, like recommend them or refer them to like a rescue or something.
Hmm.
So yes, these are all important things to take into consideration. So yeah, I think another thing is like how familiar you are with the animal. Like if someone's offering you some type of animal you've never kept before, and you want to adopt it, but like you're not too familiar, I would say like don't immediately say yes. Like if you want, like maybe go do some research and see how difficult it is to keep, if it's similar to any animals you've kept before. You don't want to get in over your head.
Yeah. Oh, do you want to go in just really quickly about, I guess, how to research your animal?
Yeah.
I want to do a whole episode on it, but I think this would actually be more beneficial to us is right now.
Mm-hmm.
So if you when I say research, you're like, okay, how the fuck do I research? Do I just Google? That's one thing you could start. I
Mm-hmm.
would, if you're at least Googling, you're doing at least 50% more than what your average animal owner does, unfortunately.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
only
I
thing
think
though is just like what you learned in school about Wikipedia and Google, is that you don't trust just one website. You don't
Yeah,
just
you cross-reference.
you cross-reference every fucking thing you can.
Mm-hmm.
To give some helpful advice though of different platforms you can look at for research, a lot of it is on social media, thankfully. So I guess most animal people I know of are on like, at least information wise, not just like cat photos,
Mm-hmm.
because that would be Instagram.
Yeah.
But Facebook is a really, really good, useful tool. It will be just as crazy as the internet is. It's going to be varying a lot of opinions. It's going to be a lot of people that are each helpful or sensitive, or like but you're, as long as you're doing the best you can within that community, and just trying to get as much information to benefit your animal, that's fine. So
Mm-hmm.
I'd say Facebook is a good one. Reddit is a good one. For other stuff like Tumblr and Twitter, these are not like good ones. I would say, like, I haven't
Yeah.
really seen anything about it. YouTube is a good visual learner, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing with
Yeah.
YouTube again is that you could have like little kids on there. If I just write in
Yeah, it's like a
hamster, you
lot
could
of
have a
different
little kid
people's
getting a
opinions.
hamster, and you could be getting the wrong information, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
If you are getting an animal for the first time and you're doing research, you're gonna notice probably most animals. Yeah, I would say most animals. I was about to say half or least, but most animals, they have different care than what you originally had thought of them. There's
Mm-hmm.
way more to it. With every animal, there's a huge, like, you're gonna be like, what the fuck, every time you look into the actual
Yeah.
care of an animal.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, another couple things I thought of to add for like considerations before you get it. You should also consider lifespan of the animal, because some of them do live for like
Yes.
30 to 60 years. And so you need to know if you can make that commitment. Another thing is maximum size, because for some things like reptiles and fish, they do grow
Mm-hmm.
exponentially. So you kind of want to know that you'll be able to like accommodate the size of that animal. But yeah, those are
Yeah.
just a couple of things I
You could, yeah, no,
remembered.
you could do that through, yeah, and you could find out that information too through your research. So if you're looking
Exactly.
at
These are
bearded
types of
dragon
things you
care,
should be researching.
yeah,
You
so if you're
should
looking at
know
bearded
like the
dragon care, you
size of the
saw in the
animal.
store they're this
Yeah.
big, but they're going to be like a foot long and
Mm-hmm.
require like a 75-gallon to, I would suggest more closer to a 100-gallon
Yeah.
tank for them. And yeah, like, I know it's this big, and 100-gallon maybe is a little bit too big for them now, but you're going to need to expand.
Yeah. Yeah. So like definitely like do your research, cross-reference sources, try to find like veterinary, like accredited sources that have citations. So it's not just like an owner's opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Like an owner's like kept an animal for like 2 years or something. Like try and find like actual like veterinarians, breeders, people who've owned this type of animal for a long time.
Yeah.
Like people, like you can look at clubs, like there's different clubs for fish, birds, reptiles, dogs, who are just like sources of information there. Like, so don't just go online, talk to professionals too, like
Yeah.
people like in person, interact with the animals, volunteer for like a rescue that has that type of animal.
I
Then
was
you
about
can
to
get
say, one of my
hands-on
favorite
experience.
ways of research is through rescue groups,
Mm-hmm.
because they are always updated with the, actually, no, I don't want to say that. There's some rescues out there that are just like,
Yeah, not all of them, but
yeah,
like
sorry,
a
let me not,
reputable rescue.
yeah, let me
Yeah,
not,
and like all these should be like reputable sources,
yeah,
like
let me not say
reputable
all
breeders
of
and
them.
rescues, but yeah.
Yeah, because there are questionable ones, but in general,
Mm-hmm.
example, like all the rabbit rescues I've worked with, that's actually, it's only two, but all the two rabbit
Mm-hmm.
rescues I've worked with, they really, really, really hone down on making sure you have the proper setup for them and
Mm-hmm.
everything. Like there's another one I work with, it's called All Creatures Rescue, and so they do everything. They usually small animals, but they even have some cats and like that too.
Mm-hmm.
They really, really hone down on like them doing their research and giving you as much advice too. Another place you could find, I guess, a little bit more professional stuff, but it is unfortunately very overwhelming, is online forums.
Yeah.
So I would say maybe have that as your last one. And then
Mm-hmm.
with all that, it's going to be overwhelming regardless.
Mm-hmm.
For
Yeah,
new
and
animal
read the
owners,
dates on the posts, because
yeah,
some of them might be like old,
I don't
old
want you to
information.
feel so stressed about it, because like, if you shouldn't be rushing to get your animal, so you should have time to process all this information. And regardless of everything you're saying, I do want you to come to your own opinion to it though.
Mm-hmm.
I want you to
No,
read all these
definitely.
different opinions, see the pros and cons on both sides, not one side
Yeah.
or one opinion, and then come to a definitive option for
Mm-hmm.
yourself and what you think would be most beneficial to your animal.
Yes, exactly.
And that's how you do your research before you
Mm-hmm.
get your
Yeah.
animal.
Yeah.
So yeah, unfortunately, that's what we've been seeing, a lot of people get more animals during the pandemic, right? So a lot of people are stuck in quarantine, but they're getting animals and they're rehoming them because they didn't go through this checklist. If you
Or they're
want to get
going
an
back to
animal,
work and they're like, oh, I have stuff to do.
yeah, like if you want to get an animal during this, consider your lifestyle changes, consider their lifespan, consider your budgeting and finances and your household and all
Mm-hmm.
the people it's affecting too when it's in
Yeah,
there.
and consider their special needs. And especially I want
Oh
to stress,
yes.
if you're getting like an exotic animal, even just a dog and cat, but it is harder for an exotic, make sure you find a vet. Like I would say find a vet clinic near you for like general care and checkups, and also find a 24-hour emergency clinic just in case. And for an exotic, that might be somewhat difficult. And to find a good exotic vet, you want to make sure their website details that they do see exotics and that they're a member. Usually there's like a few national or like international associations of like exotic veterinarians or reptile veterinarians. They should have some sort of membership like that on their page, because a lot of vet clinics will see exotics just because they want the money, but they're not particularly well versed or comfortable with them. So you do want like a clinic that is comfortable and experienced treating exotic pets, which can be very hard to find actually.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that's all of how to say no, if like how to know when you're not ready for a pet, how to know when you are, how to get ready for a pet, and the whole rehoming topic. So I guess if unless we have anything else left to say on that, we can go into the kind of light-hearted end.
Okay, well, we got pretty heated and serious. This took a little bit of a longer turn, so we're actually going to split this off into two parts. So next week you will have part 2 of this conversation showing up as episode 1. So stay tuned for that. We're going to finish off this conversation.
All right,
Bye.
guys, thanks for listening. Bye.